Hey guys, it's the Vegan Vibe over here, and today we're going to talk about how you can improve your success rate of turning people vegan. In order to accomplish this, we first need to talk about the psychology and biology behind change. But before we go into that, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel. It will help us out a great deal in continuing to create content for you guys, and you will help to spread the vegan message on a bigger scale. Alright, so with that out of the way, let's first start off with the biology behind change. Change happens in your brains. You have countless neurons in your brains that receive information, but also transmit information. The incoming stream of information changes the way your brain works. This is called neuroplasticity. So the more often you get exposed to something, let's say believing that meat and dairy is necessary to live a healthy life, the more neurons will fire and the stronger the connection will be, meaning that the neural pathways associated with this belief will strengthen over time. Another implication of brain plasticity is that certain pathways in the brain can also get weaker, meaning that if many people told you that you can thrive on plants and only a few told you that you need meat to be healthy, then as a consequence there will be less neurons fired when somebody tells you that you need to eat meat to be healthy, simply because the reduction in the firing of neurons. Eventually, these pathways will vanish almost completely, though at this moment we don't know all the details of how the brain reprograms itself, and it goes really deep. But what I just told you is enough to understand the tips I'm going to share with you in this video. So that's enough for the biology part. Now let's take a look at how psychology influences the process of change. It's actually quite simple. People have a fundamental need to maintain the integrity of the self, a global sense of personal adequacy. Events that threaten self-integrity will arouse stress and coping mechanisms, even if the feedback is valid. So this tells you that people don't like to be criticized, and they will do everything they can to preserve the sense of self they have. So now that you know why changing people can be tough, let's take a look at the strategies that actually work in your favor and improving your odds of turning someone vegan, despite the fact that they might not be ready for a change in a psychological and biological way. The first tip to be successful in convincing people to go vegan is by taking the approach of a psychologist. Listen more than you speak. Ask questions and try to plant seeds for change only if the opportunity presents itself. Also, take a good look at yourself. For example, ask yourself questions like, does it make me mad that non-vegans are not listening to me? Or do I find non-vegans ignorant and dumb? Asking yourself these type of questions will help you to understand your feelings and thoughts better, so that you subconsciously won't project your feelings on the person you're having a conversation with. When you have an open mind, show empathy and speak calmly, two things will happen. The other person sees how confident you are in what you say, and the person realizes that this is not going to be a discussion or a lecture on why he is wrong, but that it's going to be a conversation from which he might learn something. The next piece of advice is to find rapport first and then share your opinion with the other person. Rapport means that you're on the same wavelength as the other person, for example, by having things in common. This makes the communication process easier and usually more effective. You can establish rapport by listening to what the other person is saying and look for shared experiences or circumstances, or by injecting elements of humor and by just showing empathy. From there on, you can start arguing about how animal agriculture impacts the world and what is being done to animals. Try to avoid as much as possible shaming people for eating meat or dairy, because this will only bring up coping mechanisms in order to protect the self. Instead, start on a more general level. For example, explain on a global level how the dairy industry affects the planet and gradually increase the specificity of the consequences until you're at a personal level. This way you give the person different anchors to resonate with, rather than just one that's focused on the individual. Also, be aware of how you act while you're explaining your perspective. Keep in mind that the conversation should be about exchanging value and not about pointing fingers. So be aware of your body language, your intonation, and the words you use. To make your argument stronger, try to incorporate your facts into a story that touches someone on an emotional level. Science has proven time and again that when you persuade someone with a story, the receiver will listen more carefully, will be able to relate better, and in general be more convinced that he or she should make different decisions in their life. Another tip you should know about is that most people won't get convinced immediately. There are some, but to manage expectations, the majority won't, and that's okay. In fact, it might be even better. Remember how I talked about the plasticity of the brain, and your beliefs basically become hardwired into your brain. It takes time to quote-unquote unwire the neural pathways and rewire them. In fact, if I'm going to be really honest with you, it takes a lot of time before they can finally make the connection. However, the more you quote-unquote hit someone from different angles with your story, the higher the chance will be that the person will resonate to your story. This is why people need to hear the same message dozens of times before they are finally able to receive it and do something with the advice. Because at first, the beliefs of these people are so deeply ingrained in the brains that they simply won't be able to think in any other way than what they know and believe is true. And then the ego comes into play and dismisses the truth in order to preserve the sense of identity. So don't get discouraged, but be patient, and I'm sure you will be able to make people go vegan over time. Another fabulous way to turn people vegan is by using social media. Social media, especially Instagram, if used correctly, can be an amazing tool to spread your message to thousands of people worldwide. It can 10x your success rate if you manage to get it working. So how do you get it to work? Well, first of all, besides posting vegan memes, you also need to post content that has value to a non-vegan, because the vegans on social media don't need to be convinced anymore, and they will gladly laugh about your vegan memes. So for instance, a valuable post could be like sharing scientific-based information, sharing informational videos of how certain industries operate, but also show sides of veganism where you make fun of the struggles you face as a vegan. People appreciate others who don't take themselves too seriously. Another way is to write meaningful captions under each post. So in this situation, you draw the viewer in with your creative and hook them with your caption. Another important part of the equation is to make use of hashtags. Instagram allows you to reach millions of people completely for free if you share amazing and relevant content. So find out which hashtags you want to target and create the content around it. Trust me, this is a proven method of how to turn people vegan. We've done this with our Instagram profile and our growth has literally blown up the past few months. So once you have finally convinced someone to go vegan, the next step is to act as their personal Wikipedia. You should explain to them where they can find the best information about nutrition and health. Or if they are asking for videos or documentaries, you should know what to say. Think back to when you decided to go vegan. How much easier would your life have been if you had someone that stood beside you explaining everything you needed to know as a beginner about veganism? Or maybe you did have someone like that, and now you know how great that felt. Anyhow, the more you support someone during their transition into veganism, the more likely he or she will stay vegan for the rest of their life. So in sum up, I hope that you have a better understanding now of the different dynamics that come into play when you want to make someone go vegan. I want to stress as well that we should respect each other's choices, no matter how much we disagree with them. For some people, it's just a matter of timing, and others might never go vegan in their life, and that's a fact that we should all accept, no matter how we feel about it.